So if you guys didn't know, I voiced Carlton on the Silver Eyes dub made by Elementary Studios, and the reason that I wanted so bad to be Carlton, and was so happy when I actually got the role, was because me and Carlton are basically the same person in real life. Not that he's in real life, I mean that me in real life, I'm basically the same person as Carlton. The only difference between us, one of us is actually funny. About a year ago, I realized that the lore of FNaF 2 is actually inconsistent. Planning to make a video on the topic, the Ultimate Guide was leaked. I originally believed that the Ultimate Guide was actually reliable, and my idea was to talk about the entirety of the FNaF 2 chapter for one video, where I would also talk about the inconsistencies of FNaF 2. But then Security Breach came out, and I never really had time to make the video because I had to make videos on Security Breach, theories and stuff. It kept getting pushed back farther and farther, but today, we're finally going to cover it. FNaF 2 has a consistency problem, and the Bite of 87 has a big part in that. So that's what we're going to be talking about for today's video. Hope you all enjoy, and let's get started. The Bite of 87 was the first incident we ever learned about in the FNaF series, and even then, we don't know too much about it. When FNaF 1 first came out, there were numerous fan theories about who actually did the Bite of 87, and some people believe the answer was actually solved in FNaF 2. FNaF 2 takes place in 1987, and the place closes partially due to possible malfunctions in the toy animatronics. This confirms that the Bite of 87 did happen and that it was done by one of the toy animatronics. Mangle is the most likely option to me, simply because she's basically the only one that's physically able to bite someone, but Toy Chica also has some hints, like when she says her beak is in our forehead. But the problem with that is the toy animatronics are just really small, and Toy Chica's mouth can't really open wide enough to bite someone, and if she just stuck her beak into our head, that isn't really a bite, and I don't remember Phone Guy calling it the peck of 87. So for that reason, I don't believe Toy Chica was responsible for the Bite of 87, I believe it was Mangle. But I'll talk a little bit more about that later on, but for now, I think we should talk about how, despite the Bite of 87 clearly happening, the significance of it seems to have changed. See, FNaF 4 was actually originally going to be about the Bite of 87. In the files of FNaF 4 are the repeating numbers of 8 and 7, and the end of the game showcases a bite. But I've been told, and I'm not sure if this is true, but I have been told that shortly before the game released, they were actually replaced by the repeating numbers of 83. FNaF 4 is factually set in Fredbear's Family Diner, so it's possible that this was originally meant to be the Bite of 87, but Scott realized that that would actually be a plot hole, since FNaF 2 Phone Guy says that Fredbear's has been closed for years. There's also the issue of the Bite victim dying when the 87 victim survived, so Scott changed FNaF 4 to being in 1983. This would also make more space for the timeline and make it a lot less compact. So all this would imply that the Bite of 83, while it didn't retcon the Bite of 87 out of existence, since FNaF 2 still implies that it happened, it did kind of take away from the significance the Bite of 87 originally had. Scott kept the Bite of 87 in the story, but he reverted it back to what it originally was back in FNaF 2. The problem with the Bite of 87 though is that in the story of FNaF 2, while it clearly happened, it was redundant. We know Jeremy was the one to get bit, since Phone Guy on night 6 says he would switch us to day shift and Fritz is the next guard the next night, implying Jeremy really did get switched to day shift. That is when the Bite of 87 has to take place. But the Bite of 87 isn't entirely what shut the place down. What shut the place down was the Save Them incident, where more murders happened. Phone Guy tells us on night 6 that the place had to be closed down because someone used one of the golden animatronic suits to kill kids, and the Save Them minigame shows the result of that. The kids are scattered around the restaurant, dead, and Golden Freddy also appears. Since Phone Guy on night 6 says that a golden suit was used to kill the Save Them kids, and Golden Freddy is active on that night, it seems like unlike the original MCI, the Save Them kids were killed by Golden Freddy, since Spring Bonnie is still locked in the safe room of the first Freddy's location, which is why he's still there in the Follow Me minigames from FNaF 3. The Save Them kids are scattered around the restaurant, dead. But there's a problem with that. The FNaF 2 phone calls are pre-recorded, because of Save Them. Now, I'm not going to bring up the summer job thing because I don't think that's the best evidence, and even though I believe these calls were pre-recorded, I don't actually think they were recorded in summer anyway. But on night 6, Phone Guy talks about how after the murders, the animatronics weren't acting right. Keep in mind they were already acting a bit strange, but now Phone Guy says that they are particularly weird after the murders. But the animatronics have been attacking us the whole time. Toy Freddy and Toy Chica's eyes turned black with white pupils. This is a sign of possession, and that means that they were possessed even before night 6, meaning these have to be pre-recorded. But there's also the fact of the Save Them minigame itself. The kids in Save Them are scattered around the restaurant. They are not missing, so the kids will have been found right after they were killed. The only times William ever actually had a badge were in FNaF 4 when he worked at Fredbear's, and in FNaF 2. That would mean that he was the night guard at FNaF 2 before Jeremy was the guard. But then there has to be a guard before William too, since Phone Guy talks about the week before us, and how there was a guard there. And if these messages are pre-recorded, then they are to William. Save Them only happens when William is the guard, and since it happens on the second week the location is open, these calls have to be pre-recorded. William, maybe under the name Dave Miller like in the Silver Eyes, works at FNaF 2 to kill the kids. Notice the object in his hand? People use this as evidence to say that Phone Guy and Purple Guy were the same person back in the day, and while that's now debunked, it doesn't mean that it can't still have been a phone. William could have had the phone to listen to the phone messages from Phone Guy, the messages that we listen to during the nights, and specifically in the Save Them minigame, the message that we get on night 5. And then, the very next day, the bodies are found in the restaurant and Phone Guy makes the panic call from night 6. My point here is that the calls in FNaF 2 are recorded a week in advance, but the issue is that Jeremy still has to have been transferred to day shift, and then the bite of 87 happens. That's what happened, yet the place closed a week earlier. These two things both have to have happened, but they contradict each other. That's why FNaF 2's lore is inconsistent. It doesn't make sense. While FNaF 2 is one of my favorite FNaF games and the story is cool generally, if you actually pay close attention, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Two separate incidents take place at the FNaF 2 location, yet the two events and the way they are presented as taking place contradict one another. In the end, it's a bit hard to pinpoint what the Bite of 87's significance was at this point, but I think I have an answer. So we touched on it briefly earlier, but we should probably try to figure out who did the Bite of 87 with as much evidence as possible. Foxy being out of order in FNaF 1 and his sharper teeth and larger jaw lead people to believe that he caused the Bite of 87. Others believe Freddy did it as he has handprints on his face. Others believe Chica did it because of blood on Withered Chica's endoskeleton model in FNaF VR. Others believe Golden Freddy did it because if you type 1987 into the custom night of FNaF 1, you are jumpscared by Golden Freddy. This could also potentially support the idea of FNaF 4 originally being planned to be about the Bite of 87. But all this has a problem. The Withered animatronics aren't public entertainers for the second Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location. They are shoved away into parts and service during the day, so they aren't capable of doing it. Plus, the End newspaper talks about how the toy animatronics are scrapped due to possible malfunction, and that the Withereds were being kept for reopening later down the line. The classic animatronics are also the Withereds after being repaired, so it had to have been a toy animatronic that did the bite. It also can't have been the puppet because she has no teeth, and can't have been BB and JJ for obvious reasons. It can't have been Toy Freddy or Toy Bonnie because their jaws aren't on a hinge, they're ingrained into their faces. They aren't physically able to open their mouths wide enough to bite. Toy Chica and Mangle are all that's left. Toy Chica's beak has always been an interesting detail, and in Ultimate Custom Night it was used in one of her voice lines, saying that it's lodged into our forehead, where the frontal lobe is located. Mangle has a really large jaw and the sharp teeth just like Foxy, but she also has her jump scare, coming down from the ceiling and aiming for a bite to the head. Mangle's jump scare basically is the Bite of 87. Toy Chica also has the issue of her mouth being way too small, and it was named the Bite of 87, not the Peck of 87. Some argue that Mangle technically isn't a toy animatronic since her fixed form is actually named Funtime Foxy, and Mangle is also an animatronic that has been completely obliterated. So because of that, it's not too logical to blame all the toy animatronics for the bite. But you have to remember that the location was going to be shut down because of the toy animatronics malfunctioning anyway, but it seems that the Bite of 87 just caused the location to close for good and prompted Fazbear Entertainment to scrap the toys and reuse the old characters. Phone Guy mentions on night 6 that the location will probably open again at some point, and when he says the location, implying that this location will reopen, not the original location. But then it seems like because of the Bite of 87, they're no longer allowed to open in this location. They have to completely reopen, and since this location was really a failure, they pretty much went bankrupt and had to use the original animatronics and the original building because they already had them and they can't really spend money on more stuff. Mangle, while not technically a toy animatronic, is advertised among the new and shiny plastic toy animatronics, using the same facial recognition systems, so even if it's not the toy animatronic's fault because of a technicality, it would still be viewed that way from a public standpoint. But anyways guys, I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please do leave a like and subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you all later. Bye guys!